I'm Lauren Renee, and I'm one of the organizers of BetaNYC. And it's not just me alone. We have Max in the back, and countless other people who have been helping us run hack nights and other events. Tonight is a BetaTalk, or part of our BetaTalk series, and we're happy to have, trying to do this every year. Tonight we'll have about 14 people give their feedback on the CfASummit that took place a week and a half ago, right?
Yes.
Okay. We would first like to thank our sponsors, of course, Code for America and Microsoft. With their generous help, we're able to have really great programming and lots of great libations after programming. And also we'd like to thank the Internet Society. We just want to let you know that this event is being recorded by them tonight. Jolie in the back is still setting up. So yeah, we'll just move on. So tonight is going to be pretty simple. First we're going to do a short introduction, and then we'll get on to the presentations, and then afterwards we'll just break out into discussion and hang out until we have to leave the space. So for those of you who don't know BetaNYC, and how many people here don't know BetaNYC? Who hasn't been to an event? All right, I love that the majority of the room is familiar with us, but for those who aren't, BetaNYC is a civic organization dedicated to improving the lives of New Yorkers through civic design, technology, and data. And we do this through education, events, tools, and advocacies, and we do this through safe spaces. So all the events, we just strive to make sure that everybody's respectful to each other, and that it's an open environment where you're free to ask any questions. So if at any point tonight you feel that has been compromised, feel free to see an organizer. We have an online presence that's just as active as our offline presence. So I really invite you to check us out at talk.beta.nyc. That's our discussion forum. If anybody has any events that they want to announce, any discussions that they want to start, this is a great place to do it. Just create a profile and start talking. Also, we have a community data portal, data.beta.nyc, which we have a great and growing set of data. Also a place where you can make data requests. This is a time where I like to briefly ask if anybody has any community announcements, that's events this week, or anything super important like I'm hiring lots of people right now. Anybody, any events this week? All right, feel free to report this on talk.beta. All right, so we'll get to the report backs. So I just want to get started because I feel like we're going to be running really short time. I would like to introduce Akezia Grigsby and Sharad Hegde. They are a part of, maybe I should go to the slide. They're part of OpenJC and Code for JC. Why is there a slash in there? They're going to actually explain to us our journey. But they're our co-hosts tonight, and I'm really excited to introduce them, and I'm hoping that we can do more partnerships in the future. So without further ado, please come up and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, BetaNYC, Microsoft, for allowing us to speak. First, you have the slides?
Oh.
You're giving it away.
In the meantime, I want to give a few announcements about our next meetup in Jersey City. It's going to be October 27, and it's called See the Evidence About How Jersey City Government Works. The location is at Hudson County Boys and Girls Club in Jersey City, and our sponsor, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, is here, Gary.
Hello, everyone.
He's been the one to allow us to have free space in Jersey City. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to demo the open data portal for the first time in Jersey City with the Jersey City government. So that's it for our announcements. How do you change?
Next zero.
Okay. So what we noticed was no one was really asking us about, like, what are you doing? They were asking us, what is your journey? Who are you? How do you get your relationships? So this is essentially our process for a particular grant, $250,000 grant that we received from Google Ideas. And the way this all occurred was, the mayor's office spoke to Google Ideas about a particular project. Well, the mayor's office said, well, we can't handle this, but we know a group who can. It was Code for JC, which was us. So we had direct conversations with Google Ideas. Google Ideas said, how much will it cost? We submitted a number, and it was mainly technology-based. Code for America said, whoa, we can't handle that dollar amount. You're gonna have to find a fiscal agent. So we did, and in that process, we realized we need to structure an actual organization, which was OpenJC. And so that's why you have Code for JC and OpenJC. And the way we have it is, Code for JC is a program of OpenJC. Okay. So this particular product that we have created is a public safety alert system. We presented this at the Summit 2015 in Oakland a week and a half ago. And we talked about our journey. We didn't really talk about the details of the product because people weren't asking us for that. They want to know, how did you get that money? How did you even get the city to trust you with the data? Which I haven't even gone into, but our product, by the way, is a public safety alert system. So we're working with police data. And the way the process of that was, we first engaged the community to get their buy-in, right? Then we met with public safety department to get their buy-in. We built this organization, the OpenJC team. We secured the funding after it took about, 8 months to get that funding, and then we started the prototype, which was this year. This is the product, Be Safe City, and we plan on implementing this to other cities after we successfully launch it in Jersey City, and we're going to launch it in about a month from now. So the process of this will be, users will subscribe via text message, then they'll get informed about trends of crime in their area, and they'll be aware.
So just going back a slide. So what this is about is it's a trend-based crime alert system that will look into historic as well as current trends of a certain area of some different types of crimes in different areas and detect a spike in crime, and if there is a spike in crime, it will send alerts. So it's trend-based, it's push-based, and it's locally aware. So users can subscribe, and based upon their location, type of the crime trends they are interested in, and where they are situated, and how they want the alerts to be received. So depending upon that, they will get push-based alerts. Now Kiza will be back to talk about our journey, about how we went about doing this.
And the way we did it was, we started small. We start with a pilot. We start with 3 neighborhood associations, and we build from there so that we can work out the kinks. And building the trust, we realize, is actually one of the most important parts of developing a product, a civic tech product. And so here's the next lesson. You can't predict the end from the beginning. Be flexible like water. We've been going through so much this past year as a startup company, from the city having a turnover of staff with our particular project, in public safety. Even internally, our own organization, we had a turnover in staffing. Realizing that maybe we need to start incorporating CAT data versus 911 calls. Things like that, we just have to roll with it, just like water.
So working with, as most of you guys must have already had experience with. So as most of you guys had experience with, working in a civic tech project is very different than working in a corporate environment. Here, for example, we had to work with several different entities. On one side, we had the city government that we had to work with, the city government, that means the mayor's office. We had the police department that we had to work with, and then we had the community. We had to make sure we get requirements from all 3 different entities, and at the same time work hand in hand with them and keeping everyone informed and everyone participated. The last one is, this definitely goes, that we don't have to be modest about our wins. So every little win that you get, be sure to communicate that to your community, because they have their vested interests in you. You guys are all together. To your partners, because they need to feel that you are moving. You're not stationary. You are achieving your small milestones. So keep them informed, be positive, and keep going.
And just to summarize, with this event, the Code for America Summit, we invited our city partners and said, we like embellished. We were like, oh, this is the TED Talk of civic tech. You have to come. This is like a big deal. And so this excited the entire public safety department, where we had all the 4 captains fighting, wanting to come to attend. So, you know, and those are part of, you know, not being modest, just sharing that excitement. And that's where we end our talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we can check out your meetup page for future events. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay,
Code for
great.
JC.
Go for JC.
What's the hashtag tonight?
What is the hashtag for tonight?
Is it CfASummit and then something else?
It's just CfASummit.
It could just be CfASummit, because it'll just go into the stream
Yeah,
of stuff. But yeah.
Hashtag-
All right.
I meant it as a rhetorical question.
Hashtag CfASummit.
CfASummit is the hashtag.
Okay. Well, I'd like to introduce Daniel Latour. Daniel Latour is the founder of the Wide City, a socially responsible civic engagement, service design, and product strategy practice. Quite simply, Daniel is shaking it up. He's bringing his expertise from digital design and media to create unique methods in community organizing and civic engagement. And at BetaNYC, we're very, very thankful to Daniel for recently teaching civic design to our New York City Civic Innovation Fellows, a program that I'll speak a little bit more about later. Daniel, thank you.
So I just want to say, sorry, thanks to Microsoft for hosting this. When I first moved to New York and began my career in the .com world, the internet world, it was right above us on the 8th floor with the CKS group, which was started by ex-Apple marketing folks and the son of one of the partners at Kleiner Perkins, the Silicon Valley venture firm. So that was where I got to work with Clay Shirky and Kevin Slavin and a number of other people who were all at our like first or second job in the .com world. That was 1996, which is like the mists of the past. So.
Huh? They're in this deck? No. Okay.
It's okay.
You
It's
don't have
okay.
slides.
There's basically two themes that I wanted to just highlight. So, you know, at the beginning of the Code for America Summit, one of the first slides, you know, on the big stage, you know, it was 1,200 people, was the theme that it's not about tech, it's about people, okay? And this kind of blew me away because there's a lot of us who've been working in sort of the human-centered design, community-centered design approaches for years, you know, over a decade. And initially in the sort of civic tech space, who's doing the time, by the way? Is there no? Okay. All right. Okay. Hurry up! 4 minutes left. You know, that was kind of like a head scratcher for a lot of people if they were coming from the engineering side or very excited about the data to the point where you kind of lose sight of people. And so to see, you know, the mayor of Oakland touting this and Jen Paulka touting this at the beginning of the summit was pretty remarkable. I would say kind of like paradigm shifting compared to, or at least demarking, you know, this shift. And along with that, I would say is also just this, you know, theme of just responding to the social issues of the day. You know, like, I don't know how many times Black Lives Matters was mentioned during the Code for America Summit, maybe a couple times, but it was, you felt the response of the community to a lot of these social justice issues, many of which are represented by the voices within the new civil rights movement. So that was pretty remarkable. Then the other thing that I guess, so my current work for the past 6 years has been shifted specifically in the urban planning realm and the built environment. So how do the sort of the technology of the city itself, along with digital technology, how does that shape and affect us? And that was sort of like to me, a very noticeable theme compared to when I watched Code for America in prior years. It's been increasingly shifting, but to me it felt very strong. So you had, like in one of the safety and justice groups, you had, or the panels, you had the chief of Denver, the police chief of Denver, Gary Wilson, saying that we can't arrest our way out of social issues, And there's another breakout group, talking about how 40% of a lot of incarcerated people are on psychotropic drugs, right? So we need healthcare, We don't need more jails, right? So there is this underlying theme about the sort of social services and the built environment that affects us. You saw I saw an indirect mention to Sarah Williams' $1 Million Blocks data work, which was pretty remarkable. That was like maybe an early sort of prescient use of thinking about people and then figuring out how can we use technology to express complex social issues and to reveal how we spend more money on jailing people. If we would instead spend $1 million in that one block, say in Brownsville, we could do a lot more social change. That to me is the sort of radical shift of it's not about the tech, it's about the people. Which isn't to say we don't care about tech. It's rather that you want to come at it from a community and people-centered first perspective. Personally, it was also nice to see Aaron give a big talk. He's a former colleague of mine at Open Plans, and sort of just this legacy of folks who've been in this sort of dance between the built environment of urban planning and tech to be getting some deserved attention for their work and all the stuff that they're doing in Philadelphia. The acres and farm stands, so local food systems. How do we feed ourselves in the city? How do we balance urban and rural dynamics? That was another sort of built environment connection that I saw. And then I guess the other thing that I think was noticeable too was the sort of tension between what I would call participationism and the sort of top-down parental state mentality, right? So this is kind of like the old debate, is bottom-up versus top-down, but there was sort of like this begging kind of call for something in between, which was expressed by, most eloquently, by Mayor Christopher Cabaldon from West Sacramento. So in the group with Catherine Bracy, he started out saying, like, if we assume that we're trying to include everyone and to always be working with everyone, that's actually anti-equity. So as a mayor, he's like, there are working poor folks who have 2 jobs. So you can't design with them because what we should be doing as folks in government? We should be actually providing value. So this goes back to this question of what is government? Do we want government? What is the value of government? As opposed to sort of some libertarian dream of a completely bottom-up solution for everything, or the sort of what I call a participationism of if only we just participate individually in all neighborhoods, all this problem would go away. So at the end, Jen Polka called for bold ideas, or like how do we even get more bold, because it seems like we're getting lots of success. And to me, I would say that lobby for that boldness to be at this intersection of the built environment and a mature, sort of non-naive awareness of how do we balance government services and value and while still being people-centered. So those are my observations. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dave Fine. Dave Fine is a product manager at PlaceMeter, a startup that measures pedestrian and vehicle activity from sensors, which can be your cell phone, can be video. PlaceMeter's data has been used to help small businesses through New York City's Business Atlas, an interactive map for analytics for all 5 boroughs. And their technology can even measure the speed of cars. So, and best of all, it's free to researchers and to civic hackers. Dave?
Thanks for that really warm introduction, Lauren. I appreciate it. Two notes, just segueing, piggybacking off of that awesome introduction. One is that we are hiring engineers, software developers. So if you have any experience in that realm, see me afterwards. And the other is that we're looking for more and more people to sign on to our platform. So if what Lauren just said interests you, let me know afterwards and we can set up a conversation. My talk back is going to be very informal. We were there as an event sponsor. It was the first time that I had gone to Code for America Summit. So I actually spent most of my time at the booth. So I want to talk a little bit about the people that I saw there. I saw kind of three types of people. One were people like me, people who work at civic tech companies and who were there to get the good word out about their companies, and saw myself in a lot of them. But the other two I think were the most interesting. One was people who were involved in the brigades throughout their country. Throughout the country and also throughout the globe. I met people in Hong Kong. I'm pretty sure I met someone from Switzerland. It was just amazing to see how many people kind of took their off time, their volunteer time, to come to this summit and to convene and talk about the different ideas swirling around their community. And it was really heartening to see the energy that they brought. And so that was amazing. And then the third, and I thought the most interesting, were the government employees that were there. I say they were the most interesting just because I think it's a natural environment for civic tech companies to come to. It's a natural environment for Code for America Brigade volunteers to come to and fellows to come to because they're deeply involved in the organization. But the government employees, they really, I feel like, have to fight to come to the summit. And so the people who were there were people who really, really wanted to be there. And it was just amazing to see all the different agencies and departments that they came from. They came from the city planning office, from the mayor's office of operations, from the police departments, every single different type of agency that you can imagine. And what that taught me is that oftentimes what you should be looking for in the government when trying to partner with your local government or with a governmental agency is not necessarily the agency itself, not necessarily if you feel like your vehicle and pedestrian traffic monitoring solution is a logical fit for the Department of Transportation, not necessarily just go directly to them, but rather find the change agents within those departments. Find the change agents, especially in smaller cities, just within the city as a whole, and talk to them and get their buy-in and have them become your internal advocate within the system. And I think what we heard from Jersey City definitely validates that. And it was just a beautiful thing to see people from government where I think we often connote with slow-moving action and ineffectiveness to a certain extent, really be there because they want to change from the inside. So I would say find those people and partner with those people and do amazing things with those people. And that was the best thing that I learned from the Code for America Summit right now.
What do you think? Oh. Next up is Diana Chikolnikov. I'm so sorry.
Happens every time, no worries.
Diana is the engineering director of Search, a search engine for places worldwide that is powered by open data. Search is a product of Mapson, an open source mapping lab that supports the geo community through building tools and collaborating on open source projects. And Mapson is a big supporter of map meetup groups in the city. This is BetaNYC and Map Time.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Diana.
So I started with MapZen less than a year ago, and when I started at MapZen, I was new to the whole geospace, to mapping. I come from software engineering in various environments and industries, never in mapping, and really never in civic hacking either. So I started, and the whole mapping community kind of embraced me. Open addresses, open street map, all of these things that you may or may not be familiar with, but these are all open data initiatives. So it was really an eye-opening thing to kind of start there, and then the new experiences just kind of kept on coming. And this year I got to go to the summit. I actually got to present at the summit, which was amazing. I partnered up with the Open Addresses folks. That's Mike Migursky, who's the CTO of Code for America, and also E&Ds. They founded this organization. Basically, Ian said one day, oh, I want to take all of these data sources that are publicly available from the government. Local governments publish all this address data with parcel data, all these things that would be awesome to put into OSM, which is an open data set. And when he tried to do that, he got a lot of pushback from the OSM community because they don't like bulk imports. And so he said, I'm just going to start my own data source. And so that's kind of how Open Addresses began. And then Mike Migursky with Code for America helped set that up and make it so that it was more streamlined as far as like how you import the data. So where MapZen comes in is we are a company that builds mapping tools. So we build tools on top of all the open data, and everything we build is open source. And so without the data, our tools don't mean much, but without our tools, the data doesn't mean much, because if you can't search or visualize your data, then it's as if it never happened. And so we were at the Code for America Summit to basically put the word out to the government agencies that have the data that haven't incorporated it yet into these open data sets. And during the presentation, it was really interesting to see all of these different people from different agencies all over the world, all over the United States, that had data, and they're like, we want to make this open, we just don't know how. And sometimes the challenge is getting signed off, through all the different agencies. Sometimes the data is tightly held because people pay for it, and so there's a lot of bureaucracy as far as like how do we open this data up so that people can use it in these sort of tools. And so there's a lot of really interesting questions, like help us get this data to you, because everybody's embracing the open data movement, the open source movement, but it's hard for agencies to figure out how to do that effectively. And some people just don't know that it's even a possibility. So a lot of people will have this data and they'll struggle to figure out how to build tools on top of it, because to make your own geocoder or search engine, or to make your own 3D vector tiles and make that a service, it's really complicated. It's stuff that isn't something that a government agency can necessarily just pick up and do for free, or it would cost a lot of money and time. So we're here to make that happen. And it's great to see that the community is responding really well to that. So basically, I think for me, it was really interesting to see that the open tools are being embraced by the government, because basically the open tools are supported by the very community that they can then serve, right? There is a lot of people out there that really want to contribute to these code bases and want to get more data into the data sets. And then having the government work together with those people kind of closes the loop on that circle. So that's my takeaway. And then I was also at the booth quite a bit. It was really interesting to see people come up and just learn about these different technologies, because all these government agencies that, they're just kind of folks wandering around the IT scene, not really having much experience, and just like, wow, you can do this, or like, you can visualize the data, all these things were just kind of like eye-opening, not only for them, but for us as well, to know that like, it's important to get the word out there. That's my experience. I hope I didn't ramble too much.
And next we're going to have Lou Wayne, who also works at MapZen, and he's also a former CFA fellow that was part of the team that started StreetMix, a web tool that allows you to design neighborhood streets in your browser and export them as images. And let me tell you how much I love StreetMix. I'm a transportation planner and work at an urban planning firm, and we use your application, and I've seen it used by other community groups, and it's been extremely helpful. So I'm so honored to meet you.
guess my follow-up question to that is there any way we can charge money for it? How does that work? We're still trying to figure that out.
Keep it real.
Yeah. All right. So, so I am a former fellow at Code for America. I was in the class of 2013. And how many people have been going to the summit since the beginning? Anyone here? Well, since like 2012. Who's there at 2012? I was there at 2012. Who's there in 2013? Some people. 2014? 2015? Oh yeah, that's the third. Cool. All right, so I've been at the summit for a little while because when I signed up, when I applied for the summit, they said come show up. I'm like, all right. So that was 2012. I was already in San Francisco. I hadn't started the summit, or I hadn't started the fellowship yet, and I was just like, just blown away by everything. Just all the people who were there. There's so much inspiration, so much cool things that were happening. I was like, this is super exciting. This is the best thing. I'm so glad I'm doing the fellowship. Can't wait for 2013 to start. So I talked to one of the fellows in 2012, and I was like, how awesome is your experience of the fellowship? And she was like, all right, hold on, let me tell you. The reality. You're gonna go in, and you're gonna work with two other people you've never met from backgrounds that you know nothing about, and you're gonna go and solve some of the hardest problems facing municipal governments with people who may or may not want you to be there. Good luck. That's super hard. So 2013, I mean, so it kind of held true. I mean, that was sort of the experience that I had. So 2013 was like a lot of hard work. We presented our work at that summit, and our city was actually the city of Las Vegas. And we did some cool stuff for the city of Las Vegas. We did an application that lets people who wanted to start new businesses figure out how to get through the business licensing process or where to like locate their business. We did a food truck map for them. And we did also a cool thing called Am I in Las Vegas? Because not because you might get too drunk and not know where you are, but because the borders of Vegas are actually super weird, and it actually makes a big deal because it makes a big difference because people will like move to Vegas and they'll put like I am at this address, Las Vegas, Nevada, and the mail will get delivered to your house, but then you'll go to the city for a service, and the city says no, you don't live in Las Vegas, you live in the unincorporated holes that are just sort of all over the place. So we built that for them, and it was a lot of hard work. And so you might be asking, how did the thing like StreetMix happen? How do you do a project like StreetMix on top of the work for Las Vegas? I mean, because sometimes you just need a break. I mean, that's actually really how that happens. Like, the people who are working on all these projects, like, need some time apart from a lot of the hard political nature of working at their city projects, and then we make a thing like StreetMix. So that's how that started. Anyway, so 2013 was very hard. It was a lot of stressful preparation just to present our work. So my perspective on the summit, like coming back in years since, in 2014 and 2015, is like, this is so much more comfortable. I can just relax. I can like talk to my friends. We're all like back for the summit. We can talk to all the people that we've met, like, and just hang out in the hallway and just be like, hey, what are you up to? What do you do? That's so awesome. And so all of the really inspiring moments of 2012 essentially come back to you because you no longer have to do a whole bunch of work at the summit. So that's amazing. So I'll just share like a quick story that was really, really cool. In the hallway, there is a guy, his name's Keegan, and he comes up to me in the hallway because he recognizes me somehow, and I've never met him, so I'm like, I don't know where we met. Where do I know you from? And he said, well, I'm from the city of Santa Monica. We put all of our GIS data as GeoJSON files on GitHub. And I was like, oh, wow, you're that guy. Because they were one of the first cities that I know of to ever do that, to take their GIS files from the internal city government and say, we're going to put it up on GitHub now. It's going to be a format that anyone could just read. People can also just contribute changes back through GitHub if they want to, and then we'll incorporate it back into our city data set. And I thought it was the most incredible thing ever. And I had opened up an issue on GitHub a little over a year ago, and I said, hey, you don't have any licensing information, and that's like really important, so could you get some licensing information up here? And he said, all right, we'll look into it. And then so he reminds me that, oh yeah, we never got back to you on the licensing. And I'm like, oh yeah. It was the thing I was trying to do over a year ago, I forgot about But it was so cool that he remembered that, and that he remembered me, and he was like, he wanted to say hi. And then he told me the story that I thought was really amazing. He said, so I came to the summit, and I found out that our city manager is here. I didn't know our city manager was going to be here. He didn't know I was going to be here. And if you know anything about the way cities are run, like city managers are like very, very powerful people. Like they, other than the mayor, they have the complete oversight over all the administrative duties of the city. So they went out to a Giants game. They hung out, and I was like, this is so cool. Like the IT guy who put GIS data on GitHub is now friends with his city manager. And that's like the most amazing thing, because people who want to get things done meet at the summit. That's how they do it. So that's the story I wanted to share from the summit. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Erin Simpson, who is a recent addition to the Civic Hall team. She is a project director of the Civic Hall Labs, where she's working to enhance the capacity of civic technology movement. Before joining Civic Hall, Erin was a student at University of Chicago, where she studied digital inequality through the experience of public computer users at libraries and community centers in Chicago. We're excited to welcome Erin to the New York Civic Tech family, and we look forward to collaborating with her.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to switch this out. It's going to be fine.
The system is collapsing.
Let's see what Joel says.
Yeah, this magic happens because I used to work for Microsoft in Chicago, and so I've had this problem before. So I've been here. See how this worked? Okay. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here talking, and I went to CFA for the first time. I'm going to talk about the best 75 minutes of my week, which we're sitting in Lauren Ellen McCann's breakout session. How many of you are familiar with Lauren Ellen? Okay, cool. Awesome. Then you know that she is the build with, not for crusader throughout the civic tech space. And so before I get into that, I have to start by calling out the obvious irony of the fact that I'm about to talk about community partnerships, and I, in fact, have 0 community partnerships here in New York. Thank you very much. It was a different story in Chicago, but I'm new here, and I'm new to this community and other communities, and so I'm building that now. I need this more than any of you. It's a selfish sharing time for me. Okay, so Lauren Ellen McCann, her Twitter's up there, fellow at the Open Technology Institute, amazing human, expert in civic engagement, community technology. She wrote a book. I'm going to tweet out the link right after this because you can get it for freezies online. You can also buy it if for some reason you want to patronize in that way, which is great. I'm going to give you the cliff notes of a rich and beautiful talk that she gave. It was super inspiring, and we were all excited. You're only going to get the cliff notes, but good news, you can read all about it in the book. Okay, so civic tech, community partnership in civic tech. Let's actually do it. And actually learn from all of the other people in industries who've been doing this for a long time, like Daniel's work, or like actual civics or international development, or people who have worked with this very problem of how do we do like the top down and the bottom up and include people and not be patronizing in our work. How do we think about that? So the civic tech production line, what we think we're doing today. There we go. Idea, design, build, test, release. That's great, right? That's all great. Engagement. Somewhere in there, we're doing community engagement, right? It's the magical unicorn that happens when we go through this beautiful process. This is our official model for the civic tech movement as I've understood. So Lauren Ellen McCann developed this sort of after she was like, yeah, let's build with, not for. And that resonated with a lot of people. I think a lot of people were being kept up at night when they thought about sort of like the tech that they were building and that other people were building. And so this presentation in her book is sort of a response to like all the people who went, okay, like how do you do that? And so let's talk a little more about what we think we're doing. Small group ideation. Maybe invite a couple people in, You're like, oh, you use the system I'm trying to build an app for, let me talk to you about your problem, great. Design, you got, an empathy-driven design in a small group. You build, you maybe collaborate with the open source community. You're like, hey, BetaNYC, help me out with my thing. They're awesome. They're like, great. Maybe you have a feedback loop. And then you release. You release it into the universe. This is Tigger, for all of those of you who forgot, haven't seen Winnie the Pooh in a while. And it's a success. You did it. Your civic tech tool speeding out into the universe. Which is civics, right? Is that civics? Okay. Civic tech. Thinking about the civic tech is scary and hard because we have the means of production now, and there's like a big responsibility that comes with thinking about the power that's there. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but I'm like, I'm doing this in my spare time, or like I'm a startup and I've been scrounging for funding for years, and so a lot of times, it doesn't feel like we have a ton of power or a ton of status, but in a lot of ways we do, and the community so does too, and so we need to think about how we're sharing that. Okay, so civic tech, we can kind of start to define that. If we're doing the quick and dirty version, tools we use to create, support, or serve public good. That's actually pretty clean, I'll take that back. But what is the public good? Oh my gosh. I'm not qualified to answer like what does the public good mean, and like who am I to tell you what the public good is? And Lauren Ellen writes a lot about this in the book. This is my face. For those of you who aren't familiar with the 1973 sci-fi thriller Soil and Green, check it out. The point is, it's the people. So we'll skip through this for the 5 minutes that's there today. Spoiler alert, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for how you do community engagement in civic tech. That's not going to surprise anyone. Second spoiler alert, if there was, it would be meet the people where they are. That's right, this is the DC Art Funk Parade where Lauren Ellen was meeting the people. I was calling this in my Twitter stream of her talk, the Civic Tech Congo line. I'd like to keep that going. That could be you. That could be you in the back of the Congo line if you're trying to make civic tech for that or for that community, not just to be there for whatever UX process you're doing with them, but also to be there, when you're throwing a party or when there's a parade or there's an art parade in a place that you're trying to make technology for. So Smart Chicago Collaborative family and Lauren L. McCann have been collaborating on experimental modes in civic tech, which, as I've discussed, is sort of the long version of what this is. And they developed a set of people-first criteria that I want to share today, because this is super useful if you're just trying to check yourself on what you're doing. So start with the people. Cater to context. Know what you're doing and what is the socio-political reality of where you're working in. Respond to need. Let actual needs, demonstrated needs that you hear from people directly, drive what you're doing. Build for best fit. And listen when they're like, oh, this is, what is most useful. And you're like, yeah, but this is the thing that I thought we were going to do. And they're like, this is most useful. Build for best fit. And prove it. Document what you're doing. Whether you are live streaming or you are writing it down or you are sharing this in the local paper or online on Twitter, document what we're doing because we're all can benefit from that. And also it just provides a platform for more people to see into your work, which is another way of doing it. And meet people where they are. I love this. So socially, technically, physically, on equal terms, the distributing power part, which I touched on, and decide where you're going together. Creating two-way educational environments. That's a great way to think about your community engagement in civic tech, because you are learning a ton. They're maybe learning, and if you're both valuing one another's time and the potential you have for one another. I'm not up here to preach. I'm learning a ton just like everyone else, but it's a pleasure to be able to share Lauren Ellen's work. Please check out her book. This is it. You can get it at smartchicagocollaborative.org/modes. Thanks. Yeah, I totally can. Hey, Matt.
Capital S.
Quick Q.
Meanwhile, I guess our next speaker is going to be Jaron Benjamin. And Jaron is a VP of Community Mobilization and National Advocacy at Housing Works, a nonprofit dedicated to ending the dual crisis of homelessness and AIDS. Jaron spoke at the main stage during the conference in the session, It's About Feedback Loops, and about how Housing Works has used data to reframe the discussion of government spending for HIV/AIDS assistance. I saw your presentation while I was eating lunch today, and I thought it was fantastic.
That's fun.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Thank you. You know what's funny is I used to run with a guy that lost against Usain Bolt's training partner in the last Olympics. He was way faster than me. So I'm Aaron Simpson. No, I'm joking. I'm not. I'm Jaron Benjamin. I'm the vice president for community mobilization at Housing Works. As Lauren said, we're dedicated to ending the dual crises of homelessness and of HIV and AIDS, two very daunting tasks. So having a conversation with somebody who just happens to be working with the organization I used to be the executive director for here in New York City, Met Council on Housing, not the Met Council on Jewish Property. Just have that mix up all the time. And he said, so what are you doing now that you left Met Council? And I said, well, I have to end AIDS around the world by the year 2030. He said, well, how are you feeling? I said, actually pretty good about it because of a couple of victories that we've won here in New York City and throughout New York State, and have also really gotten a lot of people around the world to really buy into the World Bank, whether it's them committing to end global poverty by the year 2030, which is the reason why we set the goal of 2030. So really, really amazing stuff. Speaking of amazing, before I got pinged by Code for America, I'd never heard of Code for America at all. And as a matter of fact, until Matt tweeted me, like, hey, let me get your email address. I had never even heard of BetaNYC. It is really, really amazing. So I never heard, I went out to that conference. I didn't know one person there when I got there. And I thought, the thing that just kept coming back at me was how small our world was. Because it seemed like everywhere I turned, there was somebody who either I had crossed paths with their organization, and I did not expect that. To be honest, I did expect kind of, because I don't know Code for America or these groups, I kind of expected something very boring, something very, because I was the one person in my organization traditionally that would be the person that would set up the database, that would do this with the website, that would do this, that, or the other, or maybe even build a very not so great looking website, or that would crunch the data. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm a community organizer. So for my entire career, I've been in spaces where you're judged with a very, very macho rubric. I'll just be honest. Like, it's a very macho game. When I first got into community organizing, the questions that I was told that I would be asked were, people are going to judge you by how many doors you've knocked on. If you got beat up while knocking on doors, did you keep knocking on doors? I did. It was probably not a good idea. And then in that exact same neighborhood. How hard are you? How real are you? And there was always this side of me that was really interested in doing things that were my hobby, like playing with Microsoft Excel or building a database. Things were my hobby, and integrating it into my work. And I found that Code for America, in this space right here, is the more research that I do, is just a really, really amazing nexus of the two that validates both spaces. And I think I didn't use the word macho on accident. I think it's a very gendered thing. I think that, especially in the community organizing world, data or quote unquote non-productive labor, taking down the data, getting all the data that you can, putting it in a place, keeping it safe, playing with it, this quote unquote non-productive work, non-productive labor that a lot of times has been labeled as women's work. Men and women who are organizers sometimes tend to shun that. And I've found that I didn't feel right if I wasn't doing that type of work. If that work wasn't informing me, if that work wasn't doing I wasn't allowing that work to push me in the right directions, to start discovering the right ways to go, the right ways to push. I think that if I were a different organizer, I would have gone to that summit. And I'm not going to name check anybody's presentation because, quite honestly, I think they were all very, very amazing and impressive, and I was just still so blown away that I might have gone into that situation thinking these guys are soft. Because if you're really about the revolution, you're really about making change, you're going to look to change laws. You're going to look to change policies. That's how you change the world. That's how you win, right? But I think the thing that even though I wouldn't consider myself that kind of organizer, it was just amazing how that lesson got proved time and time and time and again, that not only is that the quote-unquote wrong way to approach your work as a community organizer, it is, people know who I am at this point, I guess. Or it doesn't matter, one or the other. That it's not only is it the quote-unquote wrong way to approach your work, it's also not necessarily the best way. Because while you're butting your head trying to beat up an elected official to make him pass a law or make him sign on to certain things, maybe you haven't thought about the common ground and how you can maybe inform some of his work so that he starts to work smarter. And what do you know? He discovers that working smarter is actually the way that you wanted him to work in the first place. So that's pretty much it. I didn't want to go too long. Thanks so much to Matt for inviting me here. Now I found people. I've met somebody in the elevator. Everybody I've talked to, I'm like, wow, you did. Oh, this is awesome. This is amazing. It's stupendous. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the community. We're not going to let you go. Our next speaker is Joel Natividad, and Joel is a core member of BetaNYC. He supports talk.beta.nyc and data.beta.nyc. He's a two-time Big Apps winner, and he's CEO and co-founder of Ontodia, a civic startup which develops open data portals for municipalities and other sectors that use open data. Ontodia was an exhibitor at the Summit Tech Fair, and has helped launching Jersey City's new. Oh, that's not your name.
Yeah, let me just fire up something. If you don't mind, let me. I have put together. This won't be long. Just some takeaways from CfASummit. If I can just type. So I call this the CfASummit. There you go.
What's the URL? CfASummit?
CfASummit 2015 Ontodia. So I call it the CfASummit takeaways pop-up video style. Just a few things that I learned while Sammy and I were there. I don't know if people know about pop-up video, but I'm kind of dating myself. So, as some people noted, that was my first time to attend the summit, and there were 1,200 attendees. And when Jen Palka asked the crowd how many attended for the first time, I think almost like 2/3 of the crowd stood, and I was really amazed by that. And I was talking the whole ways with some of the first timers at the summit. No, the old timers I met, and they said when they started, and they were less than 100 people, and air conditioning was not working, and they were all sweating, and they were just around Jen talking. And now this, right? So Jen Palka said, "Oh my gosh!" So it's really civic tech and gov tech is growing and here to stay. And here's a picture of the tech fair. And I was also glad, being a first-time attendee, that there were a lot of New Yorkers there. We were representing at CfASummit. Apart from Placemeter, Car2DB was there, Mapsen, of course us. You were there too. We had our own little booth. With our own little thing, some of which you use with data.beta.nyc. And one other thing that also resonated with me was this comment by Will Lightbourne, he's the Director of Social Services in California, that this whole build with not for thing also applies to the vendors. That they need to build with the vendor and build internal capacity. Because sometimes he said, at times we're just project managers. And that's when we get disasters like healthcare.gov and all those other things, because they're just, or like bring it locally, the 311 or city time, because even the project management you're not doing properly. And of course, it's a shame Ariel can't join us today. I was really proud when they launched this Work for NYC initiative, because one trend I also found was a lot of CFA fellows are starting to work inside the system and infiltrate the system, like the Rebel Force, the Rebel Alliance, right? And there was all this conversation about a lot of these chief data officers being CFA fellows. And I was talking, hey, maybe 2-3 years from now we'll have the first CFA mayor or the CFA public advocate. Hint, hint. Here's Ariel again. I call her my civic design angel. She's really glowing. I just wanted to share that picture today. Matthew Klein was also there from the Mayor's Office of Technology Innovation. And the other thing that really surprised me is, now that they're infiltrating government, they're even doing things like open sourcing stuff, right? So they built that new website and they also open sourced the whole thing, which was to me mind-blowing. Here it is. Not only can you work with the government, you can actually work for government, which is maybe a way to do it. Among other things, some people like Jackie, who's a great civic Govey, who works with us, was also there, and Felipe, who's also a great Govey. I don't know if you heard of the term Govey. These are government employees who get it and work actively and reach out with the community, and let's encourage that. And also, I wanted to put this up because one reason why this is not just Metro New York. I'm actually New Jerseyan. I live in Secaucus. But I always say when people ask me, where do you live? I say, I'm a New Yorker. Because nobody ever says I'm from New Jersey. So I say I'm New Yorker, but because I work here. But I call it's Metro New York, right? It's one, the Hudson River is just that, something that's a political boundary. We all can work together. And it's great that OpenJC and Code for JC is here. One other thing that I wanted to share, the person who's there, the one saying Jersey City rocks, talking about a Govey who gets it is Brian Platt. Yes. He's the executive director of the Bloomberg Innovation Team in Jersey City. And he actively works with OpenJC, and actually he also gets it. Just today, this was just launched today, Ontodia is actually helping Jersey City with their open data portal. And that's why Jersey City rocks.
Yes, it does.
Just wrapping it up, Civic Tech and GovTech is here to stay, and I think we need to differentiate between Civic Tech and GovTech. I think we need to refine that more, because one time I heard Minerva say GovTech is something that needs to be available 24/7. So that's why sometimes there might be some hesitation on the procurement side, because it's not something that just runs on volunteers, which is a lot of what Civic Tech runs on. And also consider building with government from the inside. That's why all these the trend of CFA and people in this community working for government. And open source in government has arrived. Still early days, more work ahead. And one thing that is kind of, I don't know though, I'm a big New Yorker fan. And one thing that is kind of disheartening is I see a lot of the innovation is really happening in the smaller cities. And maybe because the inertia is not as bad, or maybe the bureaucracy is not as convoluted. That's why a lot of innovation is happening there. And hopefully this is not a trend that continues. And I think a lot of things, it's critical that New York does it, and does it first. So my challenge for next year is, make Metro New York, not just New York City, including Jersey City,
Yes.
a showcase, bigger, better, and better. Because everything is now in place right here in New York. We have Civic Hall. I think either John or Matt came up with this whole term of civic tech corridor or alley. Now we have Civic Hall, we have BetaNYC, we have a chief data officer, we have a chief technology officer. We have all these things in place, so there are no more excuses, right? The whole transition from Bloomberg to de Blasio is more or less done, and there are people like Ariel working inside government. So let's build with each other and really make a big splash next year. Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can take this opportunity. Hi, I'm Noel. I'm supposed to be speaking a little bit later, but I just wanted to hop up here and introduce a dear friend, a longtime civic hacker. He was civic hacking before civic hacking was civic hacking. And it's a real honor that the hard-fought victories that we've had, the scars that we have, we're still around to keep on the fighting. So this is David Moore from Participatory Politics Foundation. Thank you.
Can I get to the web browser? I'm just going to show a couple sites.
Yeah, how about that one? Let's see.
Maybe just open a new tab.
Yeah. I don't, yeah, Control T. Control.
Hey, I'm going to load a tab real quick. That was extremely generous. Thank you so much, Noel. Thanks, everyone. Hi, friends. What's going on? This is great. I really feel grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what happened at the summit, and also to show you the site that we launched. So I'll get to that in a little bit, and I'll be pretty quick. But there's a lot of you in this room who are also there, could also be giving other great talks today. So again, I've got to agree with everyone who's citing Code for America as the vital community that's bringing together a ton of different types of practitioners in this field. I've worked in open source web tools for civic engagement since 2006 with our nonprofit, and Code for America has really achieved in gathering community and getting different stakeholders invested, and with keeping this tremendous momentum going with civic hacking. And so one of the, also I want to take a moment to say that I agree that the New York City presence there was fantastic. A lot of folks are out from New York City. I think maybe New York City doesn't get the credit it deserves, like leading the national field. So let's keep, thanks Noel for your efforts to keep pushing that forward, and everyone else is doing good work every day. The New York City Council is a particularly optimistic spot in the national technology landscape because they have a fantastic public technology plan. The speaker of the New York City Council, Melissa Mark-Viverito, generally gets this stuff and has allocated staff and resources to help improve technology. In fact, at the summit last year, this is my third year, at the summit last year, Mary Tech from the council was there. This year they were going to be able to go again with Mary and one of her colleagues, Joyce Lee, who also does community engagement, just like we're talking about organizing community. So they were going to be there, they weren't able to make it, but they were going to be able to have a presence and they would stay in good touch. And there's even this incredible development where one of the great developers of Open Plans, whose name was Andy Cochran, he now works at City Hall for the Speaker's Office, and he's designed some really beloved apps with Open Plans. So check those out. But first I want to show Code for America did a little work on this catalog of apps. After all, people know Code for America for their government partnerships and their fellowships, but they also have been sort of tending the open source community around this because they've had some of the momentum that I mentioned earlier. So I want to remind people that there's this whole category here of free apps. Many of these have code open on GitHub, and let me remind you that you don't need permission to set these up for your community. You can deploy these, and I recommend deploying it with your community, right? Not for your community, of course. Otherwise tomatoes would be being thrown at me right now. But for example, picking in one example, City Voice, like surfaces community priorities. There's an answers site for commonly asked answers in your area. For New York City, I'm really interested in what the process for doing more of these is and deploying more of these apps. But talk to your local council member's office and your local community board. And I've got a lot else to say about how we sustain this work. The second thing I wanted to highlight was the best speech that I saw was this one, which I recommend you take. The best, there was a lot of great main stage speeches, but the best one was this video, Sam Vaughn, and I almost clicked on it to autoplay with some terrible YouTube ad or something like that. But I really recommend you take a little time to carve it out. He talked about what community engagement means for him in his work in Richmond, and Code for America followed through on talking about people, not just technology, by having him up on stage and by talking about his deep organizing work. So I really was completely impressed with that, and that was really vital. On Wednesday, September 30th, the first morning of the conference, we launched a site. It's called CouncilMatic for New York City. And we've been working on this for a while with our great tech partners, DataMate out in Chicago. So shouts to DataMate. I see you guys. What's going on? I'm just talking to the video right now, so I mean, I'll let them know later, of course. So they're absolutely fantastic, and they're legends in the game. New York City CouncilMatic is a new live website. It's a free and open source public resource for tracking and understanding what's happening in the New York City Council. This is the first open data website for city council legislation that's ever existed before, and our nonprofit was fortunate to build it with a grant from the Rita Allen Foundation. And here's real quick, I'm not going to go do a full demo, because I would encourage you to play around with it. This is the official government web portal for, this is basically it, for New York City Council legislation. Here's a better tab for it. 1 second. And so what we're looking to do is to provide a more user-friendly and helpful front end for legislation, because when anyone hits this terrifying, vast vortex of blankness, they're immediately bouncing. They're not going to get involved with their community. So with CouncilMatic, we look to do a few different things. I'll be mercifully brief. Oops. With CouncilMatic, we look to put search front and center, highlight some relevant community issues on the homepage, show you the next meeting with opportunities to get involved, to see the schedule where you can maybe attend, or if you can't attend in person, send in your feedback, and show you basically what some of the most significant legislation on the homepage of what's recently passed. We have full advanced search for legislation to find it by different issue areas, and on individual pages for bills, which are called introductions, we show you the status, where it is in the process, and also things like the full text and a lot more. We have a page for all 51 New York City Council members, and on their council member page, you can jump in, and I believe that Councilmember Johnson is this area. You can see what committees he or she is a member of. Speaking of jumping over to committees, you can see their latest activity on official legislation and track it in the timeline. And this page, I'm particularly proud of, has never existed before for New York City. This is the first open data events page. There's a few other folks in this room, like Michaela with Commune, how's it going, dude, that are working on the same problem, which is going to be great. So we look forward to working with the open data community to make better apps, like New York City CouncilMatic, for what's going on with events in your area. So you can finally subscribe to alerts and get involved to see things like, for this parks, what's on the agenda, and then you can actually look at the agenda. And we're beginning to build out a program where you can comment on issues and send in your feedback to your council members. And a big part of what we do is to try to explain the city legislative process. We've been working on this generally for 4 years, since 2011, the project called Open Government, and this specific project for a year. Here's a few different, it's nonprofit, so here's in open source, so here's a few different, 3 ways you can support us. First, please spread the word that we're live, or we're on Twitter at CouncilMatic and New York City CouncilMatic. Second, jump into our website and leave a comment on a bill page. We're trying to get people to talk about local issues, and then we're going to work on a comment program that delivers them to city council offices. And we're going to be working with city council offices to volunteer to get verified to participate in public comment on our platform. And so then, speaking of that, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be putting out an ask to the BetaNYC community to contact your New York City Council members and ask them to have their office commit to spending 1 hour per month, just 1 hour per month of any staff member's time, to respond to public comments on CouncilMatic. That's their verified program for public dialogue. And I'm excited to talk a lot more about including our SMS outreach and more. So grab me afterwards. Thanks.
Our next up is Rebecca Ackerman. Rebecca is a former CFA fellow and is now a data analyst at Case Commons, an organization that has developed information management systems for child welfare agencies. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey,
Matt. How do I get this to go full screen?
Control L.
Control L. Aha. Ta-da!
Cool. Hey everyone. So I also did not make any slides or have anything to present, so you can just pay attention to me. And for the first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to take a minute or two to brag. So the organization I work for, Case Commons, we build case management software for child protective and welfare services. So every year, thousands of children are under state supervision because of abuse or neglect that their caretakers are perpetrating. We are a case management tool that is user-centered, like able to be used in the field, just all these things that you would think would be, necessary or required by states, but are actually quite revolutionary. We won the Code for America awards. I forget what they made. Yeah, so in the enterprise space, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think this is one of the biggest trends of Code for America and like the civic tech ecosystem that I've been seeing develop, which is having enterprise software as part of the ecosystem. So when we started, it was little tiny apps to help you adopt a hydrant or find your bus route, which are great. Like they're great ways to engage community members and get people interested in how their government works. But if you want to affect the lives of millions of children, you go for the enterprise layer, because that's where the big changes happen. I also wanted to talk, so as you guys have probably noticed, I'm more interested in the human services side of civic tech. And one thing I've been super happy to see is that Code for America is paying more and more attention to this every year. And has started paying attention to the idea that human services technology is about humans. It's not about cool technology that we can use to help humans. It's about humans and whatever technology is necessary to help them. And also, there started to be more of an emphasis on local groups carrying technology. So building apps doesn't mean anything until you have local groups who are interested in using that technology. So for the past 2 years, we've been talking about with, not for. It's great, super happy that we are talking about involving people from the very beginning. But we have left out the pieces of with, not for that make the biggest difference, and that is paying people. Giving people remuneration for the work that they do, that when they are people of color, other marginalized groups, is often not paid, undervalued, and not appreciated. So I was so excited to see different presentations by people who are actually paying youth of color to do work in technology spaces. So in Chicago, Dr. Stacy Lindau pays teens to go around their neighborhoods and survey for public health resources. That's just one example, and one I think is really interesting, and one that I would encourage all of us to think about how we can put that into practice in our own projects. Another thing I saw, which I'm super happy about as a data person, is that we had a whole room full of chief data officers saying that data without context is not enough. You need to know exactly how that data is created, what are the processes, the business processes that go into creating that data, because without that you can't build accurate models, apps, whatever. So I'm just going to end with a few notes. And I have to say, I am stealing this from the CEO of Case Commons, who's an amazing woman, Kathleen Feely, marched with Martin Luther King, did juvenile justice reform through the NEE Casey Foundation, and now is the CEO of our organization. She made the point that good tech is great for knowing when buses will come. It's great for planning streets. But it also means, good tech also means the difference between caseworkers knowing where that an abuser links different families together and not having that information. Making good contacts with children and not seeing them until there's an emergency. And my final thought is that similarly to enterprise software being where kind of big changes can happen, big bureaucratic agencies, so not the innovation office and the mayor's office, but the Health and Human Services Department. That is where power is. And if you want to change the lives of people, you get people who understand good technology in positions where they can buy things and where they can require that their workers have the best technology available. So those are my, 15 cents. I am super excited to see how many people are in the room and how many people went to the summit. Hope to see all of y'all there next year.
Woo!
And next I'd like to welcome Nikki Zegner. Nikki is a lawyer and a CFA fellow who's working on improving community relations with law enforcement in the city of Vallejo. At the summit, she moderated a panel titled Building Digital Tools for Legal Service Providers, which discussed the needs of legal service providers who provide assistance to millions of low-income Americans. Thank you.
Hi, I'm really happy to have just gone after Rebecca because I too was really compelled by this focus on social services. I have a background in poverty law, so that's just particularly interesting to me. And also particularly interesting to me, this focus on really messy, difficult problems. What I'm going to do, just to be kind of quick, I know a lot of you were at the summit, but I have a few videos that I think they only have the main stage videos up right now, so I know that there were some really great breakouts, and they did videotape a lot of them, so hopefully that'll come up in the future. But the main stage videos that I think are worthwhile to watch for those of you who weren't there, as well as to rewatch if you were there, because it's nice to slow down when you're at an event and kind of like things fly by you and you're drinking coffee and catching up with people, and you miss a lot of things. But so the first one I just want to bring attention to is the 21st Century Government, presentation. Did anybody see that one with Jake Salomon? Some of you. So some of my takeaways with that one, and I'll just say also, Jake is working at Code for America right now as part of the health team, and I'm I'm at CFA at the office most days, and so I've been just really, really in awe of their work. And one of the things that I really admire about what they're doing is that they're really focused on a very, very narrow problem, which is access to food stamps in California. And it's like basically a team of 3 guys who are really close and are like just working on very, very small details about how people can access their benefits, how people can renew, how people can become eligible. And they're very, very focused on this experience of people who are trying to access these benefits. And those are people who are particularly vulnerable and have very complex lives. So they're really hard problems. A lot of times people think that you can, everyone wants to go to scale and do something like really big in very little effort. And I really appreciate people who recognize actually how difficult this work is and how much time it actually takes and how many failures you go through. So that was something that I really found was great in Jake's talk. And then he talked about putting people first. What is 21st century governments? Putting people first and focusing on user needs. So definitely worthwhile. And then I was actually going to say, Jaren's Jaren's talk was really great. One thing that I really liked, first of all, he's New York based, so everybody should just learn more about his work anyway and Housing Works. But then also one thing that I just thought was so cool was, your conversation about foiling, requesting information about, the budget, and then the government coming and saying, hey, can we use this, right? So I just think that that's such an important thing, that we focus so much on building in government, but then also just advocates outside can play such a major role. So I thought that was really wonderful. I also really found Jake Solomon's interview with William Lightburn really good. William Lightburn is the director of social services in California, and he's just an interesting guy. What were some of the things that I thought were interesting that he said? So he kind of made this distinction in food stamp eligibility between a culture that is focused on rules versus a culture that's focused on negotiation. And he talked about caseworkers who say, the rule is that you're not eligible, and then individuals who are trying to access benefits saying, no, my kid's hungry. So they're kind of coming from a place of negotiation, and then the agency is coming from a place of rules, and that there's this culture clash, and that's something that we can work on. So I thought that was valuable. Let me see. I should also just mention that I had a breakout session. Maybe the video will go up, but there were some really great speakers that I had. One was Margaret Hagan from Stanford. She's a lawyer who does what's called legal design. And so she kind of talked about how we can create guides for legal journeys for people who are not lawyers, and how we can increase communication with courts, and help people move through different types of systems on their own in more comfortable ways. And then I also, one person who I find really amazing is Alex Gulota, who leads the Bay Area Legal Aid in California. He's an attorney, and he spent decades doing poverty law, and talked a lot about how we can create tools to direct, basically like a ZocDoc for people who are trying to get legal services, how we could make just the process of finding an attorney to help you in poverty cases in a much easier way. And I think that we're talking about government a lot, but there are a lot of advocates that help people interface with government, and I'm really interested in how we can build in that space too. So I think that's all. Yeah.
So I just want to let you know it's 8:30 right now. We have 3 more speakers, 3 more 5-minute presentations. So hopefully we'll be wrapping up in about 15 minutes. Our next speaker is Kwon Butts, who is currently a civic fellow, tech fellow at Microsoft, and has just been accepted as a CFA fellow for 2016. He's a recent graduate of MIT's urban planning program, where he developed and is still currently leading Flock Tracker, an application that aims to advance survey methodology and has been used to survey transit systems in several developing cities.
Right, since we're in overtime, I just had 2 talks that I thought were interesting, and I'll briefly describe why. The first one was Junbei, who is also a CFA fellow and is now at the City of Philadelphia, and the talk was creating a 21st century stack. And I think this actually touches on what Diana, the woman from MapZen that just spoke, I think I got her name, I wrote her name. She was talking about basically one of the issues being and one of the eye-opening aspects of being at CFA is observing the divide between solutions that are being developed sometimes, and the capacity to either put them into operation internally within the government, or at the talk that Junbei gave, you see what happens actually in the long term when there is no capacity. So looking at the City of Philadelphia and looking at the tech stack that they had, and the massive technical debt that they're dealing with, and trying to basically do something which should be simple, which is transfer some of the basic web services that the City of Philadelphia has onto a cloud-based service, and looking at just the vast level of complexity involved in that. And I think that talk was fascinating also because of the type of audience that was there. I think it was probably the most technical talk there, and I still think that there is a divide between the awareness that there is a problem, and then the ability to kind of begin to target, what this problem looks like internally within the city, and the people that will kind of show up to talk like that. And then the other talk that I thought was really great was Danny Avula, who is the deputy director of Richmond. He's their health director, and I thought he was really fascinating because he's coming from the other side. And his talk was a kind of a main stage talk, and he was talking about the importance of CFA not just being the tools that they developed, but the change that they kind of instigated within his department. And it was basically him acknowledging or becoming more aware of or more embracing of, I guess, gets IT solutions within the problems that the health department was dealing with, and how those problems, age-old problems that have been tackling, could be addressed in perhaps new ways, or that those solutions actually are pre-existing and could be implemented currently, within his organization. I hope that made sense.
Our next up is Noel. So much to say about Noel, but I'll have to keep it short. Noel is a co-founder and executive director of BetaNYC, and he has shepherded the open data movement in New York City by helping pass key legislation, harnessing resources, and organizing New York's civic technology community. As part of his now fellowship at Data and Society, Noel has helped develop and execute New York City's Civic Innovation Fellowship in collaboration with the Manhattan Borough President's Office and CUNY. This program has trained students in civic tech and design and places them with local community boards. Welcome.
I don't want to be stuck between you and Hillary Clinton, so I will be as quickly as possible. What? Come on. She was only once our state's New York senator, and I see that half of the room has probably gone off to that. I first want to say thank you, Microsoft. This is a great honor to be here and have all these resources. Having this as the second year in a row, whereas there's Matt and the other staff that's out here. I think this is a really huge honor, and so thank you for sponsoring this as the second year in a row. It's awesome. I love this. That's my only Trump line for the night. The second thing is I really want to personally thank Jolly and all the great work that he's done within our community. Not only live streaming numerous sessions through the Internet Society of New York and through the Internet Society Global, National. Global, national. So this guy, global, national, and local. Jolly's also been, if you have any of the buttons, the BetaNYC buttons, that's his work. If for some of you who have this Rebel Alliance buttons, that's his work. Jolly is a hero to me, so thank you for all of the work that you've done for this community and the New York City tech community. Thank you. Just to be very, very quick on my personal thank yous. How do I do tabs? Oh, I need to go to a different application. Control T. The one thing that really blew me away at the summit was this site. PolicingnC.com. You try doing this live. No, thank you. Agency/8. Let me see if this comes up right. See, I just want this website so bad for New York State. I'm already one click ahead of. So this is a project from our brothers and sisters and allies in North Carolina. They're one of 5 states that have access to a centralized database of traffic stops with race and ethnicity data. I too hope that the breakout session, that it was not a main stage session, but I too hope and look forward to the breakout session being online because it was shocking, it was scary, it was frightening, and it was heartwarming to be thinking about how many people in New York, across America, and I was thinking here in New York, through the lens of stop and frisk, are abused by our system and have no voice and are only represented in data and need advocates from the social justice side as well as kind of the nerds to come together so that way we can protect all of our friends, all of our brothers and sisters, our cousins, our aunts and uncles, our mothers, our fathers, ourselves. And this is a open source site that was done by the brigade in the Triangle District. This is a really amazing site that you can go from county by county and look at race stops or traffic stops by race. One point that they pulled out was that there were 2 police officers in one particular county that if you've removed them, the state statistic for Hispanics dropped by like 10%. Just to think of like the type of discrimination that exists within our society, and these are people who have badges and we give them the authority to enforce the law. And so this is a very unique type of transparency that only 5 states have, that's aggregated at a statewide level. And I think that this is the type of, when it comes down to law enforcement, when it comes down to accountability from our own government and from our own selves, that we should be able to have to hold those powers be. So that's my big takeaway, and I really look forward for this this session to come online. The other thing was that really when we talk about this, I was up here last year and talking about, hey, I need more help to lead the community. I'm so glad that so many people stepped up and have taken on different roles. This year alone, we've had Talk, we've been able to launch talk.beta.nyc, data.beta.nyc. We have a core group of volunteers that are helping run our hack nights, our beta talks, and the different groups that we're going around, even some of the projects and legislation that we helped get passed. Last year, around this time period, we were singing high about getting the city record online. And Michael, who's in the back, with the help of Joel, we were able to, and a few other faces that are here and some that are not, were able to really push for getting the data in a way that we can start making it useful. And so I want to say thank you for all the people who have stepped up to that type of leadership. We definitely need more, and that was a constant thread, as you've heard this evening, that it is all about the people. It isn't about the technology, it isn't about the civic engagement, but it's about the human relationship that we build, that we carry forth to make this world a better place. And I just want to close with Erie's presentation. She works for the USDS, and she had 4 quick summary of how we carry this forward. First is write things down. Second is to ask interesting questions. Third, make it easy to help you. So that's a weird one to describe. I may have taken that one down wrong. But more or less, make it easy to transmit that knowledge. And the last one is cultivate the cuirass, which is a statement that was located, a statement that, who's the author?
Kurt Vonnegut.
Kurt Vonnegut had. It was a quote that a friend, Jake Brewer, had on his monitor, and so when his family cleaned out his computer, there was a post-it note that said "Cultivate the cuirass." And for those of you who don't know what the cuirass is, it is the network of people. It is the intersection of humans that we don't know that are out there. I like to remember who was the Timothy Leary, "Finding the Others," which is another great quote. We don't know where we're going to find our friends and our allies. They're out there. And so we must cultivate our human relationships, and we must cultivate, be nice, be kind, and go build that network. And with that being said, cultivate the cuirass. For all of you making it out this evening, we have stickers with Jake's face on it, so that way you can join the Rebel Alliance. Remember, if you're fighting the Death Star of apathy, make sure that you put out a hashtag with the Rebel Alliance, so that way everybody knows that you're out there fighting the good fight. And so thank you. I'm going to turn this over to our second host, amazing co-leader of the Microsoft Civic team here in New York, John Paul Farmer. So thank you.
Thanks, Noel. Thanks so much. So I don't know if folks have heard, but the Chicago Cubs won a playoff series today. So that's proof that miracles can happen. Keep on fighting. The second thing I'm going to say is a big thank you. Big thank you to everyone who made this night happen, to all the wonderful folks at BetaNYC, to Noel, to Lauren, to everyone who does the good work week in and week out at BetaNYC, to our friends in Jersey City as well. Thanks for being here. And so much thanks should go to Matt, my awesome teammate, who I get to work with every day. He definitely is the guy who made this happen last year and this year, and hopefully for many years to come, so we can keep this community coming back together to talk about this stuff. And if you want to look at what I thought about Summit, I loved it. Every year it gets better and better. And you can go back on my Twitter feed and check out what I said at the time. But the one takeaway is what Noel just ended with, which was the presence of Jake Brewer throughout. The first time in a long time that Jake wasn't with us for an event like this, but he was there. He was there at the beginning, he was there at the end, he was there all throughout. And that Post-it note that he had on his computer, Cultivate the Cross, a group of people brought together unbeknownst to them to do God's will. And that's what Jake thought of us. That's what Jake thought of all of you. So now it's up to us to prove him right. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you to all of our speakers tonight, and thanks for staying late with us. Because it's past 8:30, we cannot convene. However, there are establishments in the neighborhood. There's also a sidewalk. So enjoy the Democratic debate.
So debate watching at Civic Hall.
Oh, debate watching at Civic Hall right now?
Yeah.
Okay, you can watch the debate at Civic Hall right now. Oh, great. Please pay attention to our meetup page. We have hack nights and beta talks a few times a month. And also please participate on Talk. If you have any projects that need any help, if you need anything, please let us know. We're here to help. Have a good night. Thank you.
Was that?